Aston Villa 2, West Ham 0. Not the performance we wanted, not the result we wanted. There were parts in the game where we did actually play well, but that was kind of killed by the second goal. Unfortunately, we'll get into the details. I mean, the first 10 minutes, or the first half an hour actually, Aston Villa were all over us. They came out really, really strong, and we kind of let them, annoyingly, have so much of the ball, so much space all of their players had. But the first 10, 20 minutes, yeah, they really were all over us. There were some key moments in the first 10 minutes, though. I mean, Mavropanos kept us in this game multiple times. I thought he was fantastic today. We'll get on to him in a second, really. Because in the first 10, 15 minutes, we could have been 2 or 3 goals down if it wasn't for him. But Mavropanos, those 2 key moments in the first 10 minutes, the touch that he gets on that cross from Sancho to stop Watkins from putting it in the back of the net is unbelievable. And then a couple of moments from corners where he has headed it off of the line. The first one, within the first 10 minutes, was unbelievable from him. He put in another performance like against Man City. He was absolutely everywhere. He didn't let Watkins do anything, really. And Watkins was given player of the match. I'm not sure that was particularly deserved. His goal wasn't much of his doing, really unavoidable from our point of view, but not Mavropanos' fault. I thought that he was brilliant again, and actually I probably thought that he was the only West Ham player that performed well, but he really has come into his own now. Since Disasi has come in, he's really improved Mavropanos. He really has, because Mavropanos is throwing his body absolutely everywhere. And this could have been worse for West Ham. It really could have been worse if it wasn't for Mavropanos in the first half. The Villa goal, I mean, we'll get into that. Really good finish for starters. I will say that from McGinn, an unbelievable finish. But nobody's closing him down. It is so avoidable. So avoidable, this goal. I mean, it's quite well worked, I will say that. You maybe wouldn't expect it to get to McGinn like that. You'd expect it to come into the box and then get to McGinn if it's going to get to him. But for me, it's just so unavoidable, really unavoidable. All you got to do is get a bit closer to him, like put some pressure on him, and that goal doesn't happen. It doesn't happen at all. But the finish, I will say, the finish is unbelievable from McGinn. It's pretty inch perfect. But the first half an hour, I will say Villa were good. This isn't to say that like it was just us being terrible. Villa were good, and this isn't the Villa that we've seen over the last 2 months, really. I thought this was a really good time for us to play Villa because at the start of the season, or the whole first half of the season, really, Villa were really, really good. They were putting teams to the sword. And you've seen Morgan Rogers, you've seen a real drop in performance from Morgan Rogers. You've seen their midfield get decimated without Kamara, without Tielemans, without McGinn for quite a long time as well. They didn't look the same team at all. But today they really did turn up. I thought they were good, Villa. And that's not to say that we weren't bad, but Villa were actually very good. I do think that Todibo out before the game started was big for us because that changed the whole formation. You're working on something all week. You're working on how you're going to set up all week. And then you have to completely change your formation, change your setup. Maybe we could have seen Kilman come in. I'm not one to suggest that I want to see Kilman in a West Ham shirt anytime soon. Don't get me wrong. But would that have been better than changing the system if you've worked on something all week? I don't actually think that we needed to play 5 at the back against Aston Villa anyway. I think we did against City. I really like that setup against City. But I think that setup is kind of reserved for a City and an Arsenal. I don't think you necessarily need to do it against many other teams. You can kind of go at teams a bit more than when it's City, when it's Arsenal. I'm not sure we needed that. I wanted to see more forward players, to be honest, because a midfield of Souček, Potts and Fernandes isn't particularly attacking. Not a big fan of that, really, but that whole setup will have changed everything. And like I say, maybe the answer was Kilman in a back 3. Like I say, I don't love that. Don't love the idea of Kilman playing, but maybe that was the answer rather than changing setup. I'm not sure. The penalty that was overturned, not sure how on earth that's been given in the first place. I think that's a terrible on-field decision. But that is one situation where, admittedly, the on-field referees got it wrong, but without VAR, goodness me. If that was given as a penalty, imagine seeing that tackle 10, 15 years ago and thinking that's given as a foul on field. Ridiculous. Really good tackles are now getting given as fouls, and it makes no sense to me. Thank God that VAR did overturn that. Not that it really would have mattered much, but thank God they did overturn it, because that was just never a foul. Really, really good tackle. A really good tackle. I think the substitutions from Nuno at half-time did really help us, though. We came out in the second half a much better team. I've wanted to see Adama Traore start for a few games now. I wanted him to start in the last game, and maybe that probably was wrong because I didn't know that Pablo would be able to do that on the left like he did against City, but I think today he should have started. I really do. I'm not sure that, like I say, we needed to do a back five. I think we could have done a Fernandes and a Souček with then Taty Pablo centrally, Traore Bowen either side. Don't think we needed to be so defensive against Villa, but yeah, the substitutions were great. I think Wilson off the bench is just always effective. He very rarely has a bad game off of the bench. He brings some quality, some technical quality. And I thought that Adama Traore was okay. Don't think he was unbelievable, don't get me wrong. He certainly wasn't. But when he gets on the ball, he does look to make something happen. So I don't mind it. The second goal just knocked the stuffing out of us, though. We were on the front foot for a good 10-15 minutes, and we looked like we were going to be the team to get the next goal. But it was a mistake from Hermansen, wasn't it? It was a mistake. I don't think anybody else is to blame. Maybe Bowen for giving the ball away so easily, because he really did. He could have just passed the ball back and retained possession. Maybe Juve for not anticipating as much as Watkins did. But again, you're probably not expecting Hermansen to do that. Hermansen needed to either hold on to it, which is maybe tough in that area, but push it away. You can't put it back in the danger area. You just cannot do that. You really cannot do that. But again, this was a message from Watkins to Thomas Tuchel. We saw a message from Welbeck to Thomas Tuchel yesterday. The likes of Solanke, the likes of Calvert-Lewin, who he's picked, haven't scored this weekend. Welbeck scored 2. Watkins has scored 1. Watkins didn't have as good a performance as Welbeck had yesterday. For some reason, Watkins got player of the match. I'm not sure about that personally. But he's scoring a goal. And that could be a confidence builder for him because he's been bad recently. So the idea that he should have been called up for England, I don't agree with. I think it's correct that he wasn't. But these players that were potentially on the fringes, like a Welbeck, like a Watkins, are sending messages to Thomas Tuchel when players like Calvert-Lewin and players like Solanke haven't scored for a few games now. It's an interesting thing to see, it really is. And from an Aston Villa point of view, another player who I thought had a really good game, Sancho. Now whisper it quietly, really quietly, but Jadon Sancho is putting together a few good performances. A couple of good performances from Jadon Sancho. Midweek he was really good. Today, I thought he was impressive as well in the minutes that he played. And is there a chance he could start for England? Is there a chance he could be going to the World Cup on the plane? I'm not so sure. I am not so sure at this point. But it's not like any other winger, or left winger, let's say, is really putting their hand up. I mean, Anthony Gordon, in the first half of the season when he was playing on the left, was terrible, useless. Now he's playing through the middle, he's been better, but he's not playing on the left wing. Rashford, is he going to get the minutes? I mean, when he's got the minutes, he's been pretty good for Barcelona, but is he going to get the minutes if Rafinha's fit for the rest of the season? Jarrod Bowen has played out on the left for England before. I'm not sure that that's brilliant. He's much better on the right, of course. You could obviously start Morgan Rogers on the left. Sometimes he does start there for Villa. But if you've got Kane up front, I'm not sure about that. I think you need runners if you've got Kane up front. So, I mean, like I say, whisper it quietly. But Jadon Sancho for the World Cup, who knows? Who knows? But yeah, not the best performance from West Ham. I will say that. Very, very uninspiring. This wasn't the togetherness, the work ethic that we've seen in the most recent games. So it wasn't great viewing as a West Ham fan. It wasn't. Maybe this break will help us. A couple of weeks ago, or even a week ago, I didn't think this break was a good thing because Spurs will get players back. Spurs won't be able to have some time away from games on the training ground. Whereas if we can keep the momentum, then I thought that would have been a good thing. But maybe this break will be good to just reset us. But let's talk about that Spurs Forest game. And this is a funny one because Spurs fans, after that Atletico game, they were going into today with confidence. You could feel the confidence. You saw it online, people talking about it. You felt that there was a kind of newfound confidence. They got one or two players back and they had a really good performance against Atletico. They actually did. I watched the game. They were good, admittedly. But it's another time when Spurs seem to not be able to translate a midweek Champions League performance into a Premier League performance. We saw it in the group phase from Spurs. They finished high in the group phase and they were good. They were good in that group phase. The fixtures were somewhat easier, but they were good against Atletico as well. But they just cannot. It's a new manager. It's not Thomas Frank now. And they're still unable to translate these performances midweek into Premier League performances. So it's looking really, really interesting now. Really, really interesting. I mean, so what? We're on 29 points still. Spurs on 30, Forest on 32, Leeds on 33. Leeds are in this, by the way. Leeds are absolutely in this. Anyone that's saying they're not is just silly. Leeds are in this. Huge win from Forest. So that puts Forest 3 points above us. And yeah, I don't want it to come down to this Leeds game on the final day. We need it not to come down to that realistically. But I don't think this is the worst situation for us. This may be, if we were looking at these last 3 games in isolation that we've taken 4 points from, I don't think that's horrendous at all. The fixtures coming up though, these fixtures are going to be big, these fixtures coming up. So ignoring the FA Cup game obviously, Wolves, Palace, Everton, Brentford, because after that it's Arsenal, Newcastle and then Leeds on the final day. Wolves game is huge. We need 3 points there, I would say. Everton look like they're playing some okay football now. Palace we need to beat as well. And Brentford, I think we can get points there. At home against Everton will be tough. Very tough. But yeah, not ideal today. Not ideal at all. But let me know what you thought in the comments. Let me know what you think, if you think that was a terrible performance, because I don't think it was great personally. There were times when we were okay, but I didn't think it was great. But yeah, let me know in the comments. But make sure you hit like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.